everyone, thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Weathering the Market. I'm meteorologist Kailey Carey.
And I'm meteorologist Dion.
And we have some exciting topics for you today.
Everyone's favorite topic for this time of year.
Hurricanes. Okay, well, I guess I shouldn't say hurricanes because technically it's not a hurricane.
Not yet.
And technically it's not even a tropical depression at this time.
Not even. No, we're actually still looking at a potential invest. Right? Well, it is an invest, but a very weak, disorganized disturbance in the Bay of Campeche right now. But the National Hurricane Center has certainly upped the chances of development over the next 2 days to 70%, which pretty much makes it likely.
Oh, yes. And then it was 90%, right?
Yeah, for 5 days, So I think we can easily.
It's happening.
Yeah, it's pretty sure it's going to happen.
Odds are in our favor. So with looking at this, what does this imply for landfall? So when we say landfall, we're looking at currently models are trying to bring it right into the center of Louisiana. And then with a hurricane, you always have a clean side and a dirty side. So which side is the quote unquote dirty side?
Well, the dirty side is you'll most often hear referred to is the front right quadrant relative to storm motion. So if a storm is tracking directly northward, the northeastern portion of the storm is considered the dirty side. With that counterclockwise rotation that these tropical systems tend to bring in, that's where we see most of the convection and precipitation as everything kind of gets pushed onshore as these systems move inland. And so with that being said, given the current orientation of the storm and the mid to long range guidance and where they're expecting landfall, we're looking at a pretty decent swath of moderate to heavy precipitation this weekend for parts of the lower Mississippi Delta, including Louisiana, Mississippi, maybe even northern Alabama and Tennessee.
I.e. bad news for them because they've already had a lot of rain.
That's right.
Yes.
Right.
So that's what we're mainly looking at is that the saturated soil is already getting more rain headed its way. And so what we're really looking at there is that's the lower Delta region where a lot of soybeans are grown. So question is, do we think there's going to be a swing in the market from this? Yes or no? Or do you think it's too small of an area?
I don't know. It's kind of difficult to say because, looking at some of the proposed rain totals, they don't need any more. They
Nope.
don't. They've had plenty. They've had plenty of rainfall. I'm sure they don't want any more. Exactly.
There's been some replant even, so.
Exactly. So that could be a major, especially for such an important area to the soybean crop. We could see some implications from that. On the other hand, if this system remains weak, maybe the damage might be a little bit more isolated.
But do you know what could swing the market?
What is that?
I think it's the upcoming rain chances that we're looking at for the Corn Belt, because we have those series of fronts making their way through. And as those fronts make their way through, we're looking at a pretty good shot at showers with each system. And right now we have about 3 systems kind of lined up over the next week and a half, 2 weeks or so, which is good news because what have they been dealing with? They've been dealing with dry weather and extreme heat. So the good news is that after this first front comes through, we're looking at some relief and relief to hang around, not just for a couple days, but for an extended frame of time. So
that's right. And we've already seen the implications in the market from these
yes.
proposed systems like that, which it's been a bit of good news and people are really looking forward to this and hopefully it does quite pan out. So, with the Sonoran heat range that we talked about, kind of maintaining control over the western parts of the United States, everything's kind of happening. We're seeing a lot of this funneling of this moisture, right from East Texas, the Delta region, up across portions of the Midwest, the Eastern Corn Belt. So all that's really kind of hanging in there for now, and that's a bit of good news for those areas. Well, at least for the Eastern Corn Belt, not so much for the Delta.
Exactly. And still looking closely at the Dakotas, they could use a little bit more rain and as well as the northwest corner of Iowa. Interestingly enough, that was kind of problematic last season as well. So we'll just have to see if those systems bring those areas some much needed precipitation.
And now we have Larry Heitkemper here to discuss some more market impacts around the country.
Thank you, Emily. Well, first of all, the little tropical event that's coming into the Gulf states, 2 comments on that. One is there's not enough soybeans in the areas near the coast there to be affected. So that will not be a major market mover compared to anything that goes on in the Midwest right now, or even in the Northern Delta. And as far as the impact on potentially the oil markets, all the oil platforms are from Mobile Bay westward, and the winds won't be strong enough to really cause any impact to the oil platforms. So this will be an interesting storm for meteorologists, bringing some rain, more rains to the Gulf states and up into probably Tennessee and perhaps eventually into North Carolina, Virginia area. But it won't be really a market moving factor. So as we talked about, the rains in the Midwest that are coming up and the cooler temperatures from those series of cold fronts are going to improve conditions in the short term, and I think that's already been reflected significantly by some pretty major price drops the past 2 days. However, I'd like to look a little further out, and I do have a serious concern, being kind of contrarian. There is a record-breaking heat dome that's built up over the Four Corners area of the West States, and of course, it's got dire consequences for them as far as heat, energy demand, and eventually, particularly, some fire threats out there. But the main concern we have from a commodity point of view is, will that heat build north and east? Some years it builds out there, although I haven't seen it build quite this much, and it never moves north and east that much into the belt. So it basically is not impactful on commodities. However, I'm concerned that over the next 30 days, that especially in the Western Corn Belt, despite the fact they're going to get a little relief here in the short 1 to 2 week period, next 10 days, that we will get some significant heat. There are some at least tidbits of concern there, that indications that heat will build. And I'm talking in places like eastern Kansas, perhaps over to St. Louis, across most of Iowa, southern Minnesota, Dakotas, and perhaps even as far east as Chicago. That's a big enough area for corn and beans. If we get serious heat, especially during corn pollination, which will be coming up here primarily in early July, that we could have some quick turnaround in this favorable outlook that's currently out there. So I wanted to add that concern to the market to give it some balance. As usual, the market looks to me like it's kind of tending to overreact right now to the improving conditions, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see it bounce back over the next 2 weeks to, at least in the short term, to some pretty significant uptrends in prices. That's it for today. Thank you, Emily.
Until then, if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Weathering the Market. We love sharing all this information with you guys, and if you didn't already know, we work for a company called Minuteman Weather, which provides a full range of energy and agricultural weather services. If you would like to sign up for a free trial or request more information, check us out at minutemanweather.com. We'll be back next Wednesday. Thanks.